Welcome everyone to our discussion today. It's right at 10 o'clock here in Denver, or maybe Central, but we're ready to get started, and we appreciate everybody that took the time to join us. I know it's a busy time of year. I'll also take the opportunity to just say happy holidays to everyone. I'm Dana Slagle. I work on the Provision Marketing team. And today we're going to discuss this hot topic about CGMPs. So I hope everybody finds it valuable. Just a couple of quick notes on this platform that we're using today. We won't be able to see or hear you, but we do welcome your comments and questions. Just use the chat feature there on the right-hand side, and we'll be able to see your questions and comments. In addition, we're going to run a poll during this discussion to capture a little bit more insight. So when you see the poll questions appear, feel free to participate and contribute, your information. The webinar is going to be recorded. So if you'd like to share it with anybody in the future, we'll be sending out the link for the recording. So with that, let me just provide a little bit of color around why we selected the topic of CGMPs today. Over the past year, Provision, we've received a lot of questions and requests for assistance from our clients related to GMPs and CGMPs. So we thought it'd be valuable to address this topic before the end of the year so that we can all move into 2023 with some best practices and hopefully avoid some of the common pitfalls when it comes to those best practices. So with that, I will just talk a little bit about GMPs and CGMPs. I'm sure mostly all of us on the call know what it means. We're all very familiar with GMPs, good manufacturing practices. But since today we're going to focus on CGMPs, I thought I would at least touch on this because I know for me, I learned a lot when I did the research on it. Things are never static in the food industry. And when it comes to scientific research, industry best practices, government relations, requirements from people that we're selling to, the GMPs have to evolve to meet these changing requirements. So CGMPs are current good manufacturing practices, which demonstrates that our companies are keeping up with the evolving regulations, if you will. And they're our first line of defense in keeping products safe and customers safe. So it's valuable for a lot of reasons. One is mitigating potential risk and possible recalls. Not only that, it improves customer confidence and increases brand loyalty and improves product safety, quality, and consistency. So since this is such an important topic, we wanted to include a subject matter expert from one of our partners, ASI Food Safety. Today, we welcome Andrew Wood, who is ASI's Director of Business Development. Andrew has helped many companies of all sizes achieve food safety goals, including keeping GMP programs current. ASI Food Safety is a leader in innovative solutions for food safety and quality. They do this through a wide variety of consulting methods, training, and third-party audits for thousands of certified clients. So we thank Andrew and the team at ASI for this content and Andrew for his insights. How are you today, Andrew? Sorry, I probably surprised you. I'll give you.
You having me on stage. Sorry, it took a little bit to click into that.
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome you. Thanks for being with us today. And today, we're going to be talking with Andrew about common mistakes and best practices. And then you'll also get to see a custom product demonstration, which features digital CGMP templates, which we created with ASI. So these templates are available in Provision's compliance store, and we'll provide a link to that in follow-up to this webinar. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Marketing Officer, Kevin Davies. He'll kick off this discussion with Andrew.
Awesome. Thank you, Dana, and welcome, Andrew.
Thank you.
I'm just going to call the audience's attention to the right-hand side of your screen. You're going to see a poll question for you to answer that pops up, asking you, what is your biggest challenge for CGMPs? So you can click on whatever answer you want. We love getting your feedback. It helps us to tailor some of the content. For today, ASI has helped us to outline 3 common mistakes that are made in introducing CGMPs, and we're going to jump right into those with our panel interview. So the first mistake that's been identified for CGMPs is not adopting food safety culture. For many companies, food safety culture is a bit of a tricky concept because it's not super concrete. It can be tough to understand how to implement it, how it may be audited. So Andrew, the first question we have for you today is, what is food safety culture in the eyes of an auditor? What are they looking for?
Yes, this is a very excellent question, and this is quite a hot topic in the food safety industry. If you go to any conference these days, you're going to see at least one session on food safety culture. When the auditor comes on site to look at your systems, food safety culture, and everything else, what they're looking for is they're ensuring that everybody is on the same page of the importance of food safety. So by that, I mean, if somebody notices something that's out of line in the facility, are they going to take the right actions to report it? Are you going to say, notice the urgency and fixing it and so on? So it's just ensuring that everybody in the facility is on the same page and that they're aware of the importance of food safety rather than just seeing it being a small issue.
Okay, awesome. So, on that theme of having everyone on the same page, contributing to the same effort, how important are metrics, maybe having KPIs so that the team can continuously improve?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the most critical parts of a food safety culture for, say, GMP or GFSI certifications is creating dashboards to everybody so you could track these KPIs. With the key performance indicators, they really help you say focus on, is this food safety culture working? Do we need to work on certain areas and so on? So it's important to get one or two KPIs down whenever you're implementing your CGMPs, and showing that you're doing food safety meetings is just one thing, but having a dashboard that's available for everybody and that actually shows you these KPIs is honestly the mic drop to the auditor. With this, they can focus on other things and they know your food safety culture is down pat.
Okay, that's awesome. And I mean, from our perspective, we've seen some of those KPIs be like count of inspection findings, count of customer complaints. There's a lot of different ways that companies can run with that to pick a KPI that suits them best. Once those are in place, how, do you think that they can really build buy-in around that? Maybe from the perspective of food safety or QA manager.
Definitely. Well, I know platforms like Provision allow you to give reports that are customizable, that really show you what you need and give you the ability to track the important information. And also to automate this process. It's one thing to say manually get these metrics, but if you have a system like Provision in place, you can automatically track the KPIs. So if you want to track something along the lines of, what are the amount of nonconformances that are found in internal audits and who is identifying them, that information is at your fingertips.
Awesome. Yeah. And we've seen rewards go a really long way. So, maybe to your point, if one of the KPIs is like count of findings, maybe in every food safety meeting, you reward the employee who has basically come up with the most findings, really kind of reinforcing, positively the behavior that you want to encourage in the facility. Um,
Absolutely.
Cool. So that brings us into the second item that ASI outlined, which is having inadequate rollout of SOPs. Maybe they're missing documentation, missing training, missing updates on SOP. So the first question that we have on this topic is, what's the most common mistake that ASI sees in audits with SOPs for a company that's maybe new to introducing their CGMP program?
Yeah, definitely. So the most common mistake that we see is just, and it goes hand in hand with food safety culture, it's just training the staff on the SOP and properly manage the SOP. A lot of times, whenever it comes to SOPs, the company will have a food safety manual that will be in one office, and not everybody is aware of what's actually in there. So having a good training program and rolling out that SOP and the importance of it is very crucial to maintaining a good food safety system and food safety culture. So that's what I usually see whenever companies just write an SOP to comply with the standard, but don't really take any follow-up actions on it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And so, in terms of that staff training, what are the basic requirements that somebody would, need to tick off in order to be compliant?
Yeah, definitely. So train your staff on all of your food SOPs and then utilize a system like Provision to set up that training methodology or maybe even quiz within the system. I know Provision has a module where you can put quizzes in there and you can automatically score them. So ensuring that they read the SOP and that they're aware of it through training and quizzes is the perfect way to do it. And a lot of times we like to see a sign-off sheet too, along with the quiz. So, answer these questions, ensure that you retain the information, and then sign off. And then that will also give the auditor good knowledge on, is this person properly trained?
Okay. Yeah, and that probably flows in, really well to the next question. If, training is kind of the benchmark, what are best practices that they can use to enhance that?
Yeah, definitely. And that goes back to just run the training as a quiz. So track the results per question and see if you need to be clear on certain topics. Another thing is after you do this quiz, what it's going to show you is if certain employees need to maybe go through it again, need additional training or reinforcement to adhere to the SOP.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so in a tool like Provision, there can be an automatic report. Maybe it summarizes training scores per section, training scores per employee. Maybe that's trended over time, and maybe that leads to a review of the SOPs that were implemented in the first place or the
Ab-
training around the SOPs.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. So, a lot of companies just have that training up front or maybe like annually for their employees. Oftentimes that can lead to some gaps. So, how can companies ensure that these SOPs are actually being followed once the training is complete?
So that's a good question. And it's overwhelming for new staff to remember everything that they were trained on. And they need ongoing, accessible work instructions. And that ties back to what I said about a food safety manual. A lot of times you'll have a food safety manual that sits in one office. You don't know exactly what's in it. And with a system like Provision, I know that these employees can see the SOPs when they do their certain activities to ensure that everything is adhering. And they also need to build SOPs into the related office, related records. Sorry about that. And I know with Provision, you can get to continuous work instructions with just a couple of taps away. So you need to make sure it's at everybody's fingertips, ready to go. They're getting the information needed when necessary. And this can make a huge difference in reducing process mistakes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so it's really kind of shifting the paradigm from one-time training to ongoing access to instructions.
Yes, and ensuring that the food safety manual isn't locked away and that it's at everybody's fingertips.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the third item that ASI has outlined for common mistakes in CGMPs is lack of audit prep, and I'm guessing you guys see this a lot in your role in the industry.
We do.
So when an auditor arrives on site, what is a red flag to them that could kind of show them that the company isn't prepared for their audit that day?
Yes, so we can go in many different directions with this. Number one, what we're going to look for to ensure their readiness for the audit is if they've performed an internal audit. Now, the internal audit, number one, if a company performs an internal audit, it's going to educate them of the requirements. So it's going to give them more knowledge and kind of teach them how to speak the correct language during the audit. And it's very evident whenever a company hasn't taken that step. Now, if we dive deeper into an internal audit, one thing that we commonly see is a company will actually go through an internal audit and just mark everything as compliant and won't identify any nonconformances. The nonconformances that were detected during the internal audit are really going to help you better your system and resolve any issues that may come up during the audit. So, and one thing that I want to say is no operation is perfect. So, whenever we see an internal audit that doesn't have any nonconformances identified, it doesn't necessarily make you look good. It could make you look unaware of the requirements. So, with those two things, that is just a very good indication that the company isn't really prepared for the audit.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, a lot of companies are shy about non-conformances, but really you want to show that those have been detected because no operation is perfect, and that might actually give more confidence to the auditor.
That's a fact. And the thing is, it's an internal audit. It's not something that you're going to share with your client. This is something that you use to better your audit score and to ensure that you're prepared.
Okay. So, if non-conformances are an important part of kind of that audit prep, how can companies stay on top of those on the day-to-day so that maybe they're achieving earlier detection? And, in the circumstance where they're graduating into an unannounced audit, they might actually be ready at any time to kind of show off that they've detected and kind of managed deviations in the operation.
Yeah, definitely. So this is going to tie into a system like provision. Number one, I'd recommend having automated rules in place with forms. So for example, if you're going through an internal audit and you notice any or identify any non-conformances, what you'd want to do is take the corrective actions on those. So how are we going to fix it? When you take the corrective actions, identify what the root cause is and how you're going to fix it with the appropriate corrective action. Usually with this, you would want to set up a, say, timeline too. So for example, you want to get this done in a week or maybe even longer. I usually recommend automating things to ensure that all of the tasks are kept up on and instantly flag them. You can force certain things, like for example, if you have a non-conformance, you take a picture of that. That way that's logged and you can separate the workflow so there's an alert to management. So maybe some non-conformances, you'll need management approval to get a building condition fix or something along those lines. So I recommend setting up the rules, setting up when you're going to fix it, and notifying the appropriate people so you can get that fixed.
Yeah, that's fair. I used to run an operation that had 10,000 records a month, and the challenge that we had was just with the volume of paperwork. Our QA managers were just trending behind because they had to spend so much time just chasing people for the basics. Like this person forgot their signature, that person forgot the time, that it was quite a bit later that they would actually get through all their manual review and reading to kind of detect things. So it led to a lot of kind of unwinding of processes when it was maybe already too late. So I think that some of the automation you're touching on where, by default, everything is filled out, everything's on time, and, maybe the rules are automatically detected can lead to earlier detection of and earlier correction of these things, which not only helps the safety, but also the quality of the operation.
And that's one of the huge benefits of digitizing your food safety plan rather than a book in an office. I know I keep going back to that, but
Yeah, for
it
sure.
really does help.
Yeah. So you touched on internal audits a little bit. Is that the step that every company should make sure, no matter what they're taking before they go into an audit procedure?
I absolutely have to say yes on that. I always recommend performing an internal audit, and usually I recommend doing a thorough internal audit of the checklist that you're going to be audited to. So whether you get a GMP audit, SQF audit, BRC, utilize the checklist that you're going to be audited to for a thorough internal audit to ensure that everything is set up. And also automate the reporting on the inspections. So review with your, say, experts like maybe ASI consultants or something along those lines to ensure that you're doing everything correctly. Here at ASI, we always like to say we're a phone call away and we can get you in touch with somebody on the consulting side if you have those questions. And that's an important resource to utilize during this process.
Yeah, totally. So a process could be for someone, do internal audits regularly. Maybe if you're finding repeat non-conformances, which can be really evident in an automated report, then maybe you're engaging someone like ASI to help kind of unpack, okay, we're seeing the same issue over and over. What are the changes that we need to make to address the root cause?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess unpacking that a little more, what would a change procedure look like? How optimal or how can companies optimize the way that they're following up once they've detected a non-conformance, either one time or repeat in their internal audit?
Yeah, definitely. So this is where I recommend using certain metrics like view how they're performing over time and count the findings. How consistent are these nonconformances? Are we having the same nonconformances? If you are having the same nonconformances, your corrective action wasn't sufficient from the last time. So this is where the metrics really come into place. And another thing is if you have repeat nonconformances, maybe you have a lack of, say, training or your SOP needs to be updated. So that's where systems like provision really help and benefit companies because you're not going to have a bunch of Excel files with internal audits where you manually have to count this is a nonconformance. You would automatically have everything tallied up. And with your corrective action report, you'd be able to see, this is what date this happened on. This is how we fixed it. We ran into it again. Maybe we need to reevaluate it.
Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful. That's it for the panel interview. I'm sure that members of the audience have more questions for you, Andrew. So for anyone in the audience today, if you want to ask some questions, you can pop those into the chat and we'll circle back to the questions that you've asked there at the end of today's presentation. I know that ASI has some handouts as well, so we'll launch those at the end of the presentation so that you can start to take action on some of these recommendations from ASI. So thanks very much, Andrew. I thought that was really helpful.
Thank you. I'll see you soon for the questions.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm just going to jump forward a little bit. In this next segment, we're going to unpack how you can implement some of these recommendations from ASI. And I guess for starters, one of the things that we often see is that a lot of companies of kind of a small and medium size who are maybe new to CGMPs struggle to pay consultants to develop totally customized programs. In some cases, that can be tens of thousands of dollars. And many of those small and medium companies don't have the full-time staff who might be qualified in food safety management. So oftentimes those conditions can lead to a lot of guesswork on CGMPs, and the guesswork can create some painful results and gaps. So if those are discovered in an audit, it can be a really big setback for your business. So the good news is that to follow up on today, ASI has developed templates that can help you to overcome this. So the important thing is that instead of spending, thousands of dollars to get these templates, you can subscribe to them for only $75 a month. And in this template bundle, it has 39 records and 29 SOPs. So really kind of all the meat and bones that you would typically need to get started in a good CGMP program. The nice thing about these templates is that they're already fully digitized and ready to use in Provision software. So this makes them exponentially more efficient and frankly, a little bit safer than paper because of the guardrails that are built into these templates, like some of their rules or their task deadlines. So you can sign up now to get these templates when they're released, which will be on January 1st. So these are coming very soon, right after the holidays. So as I mentioned, these templates are built into Provision, and many of you in the audience will have already heard of Provision. In case you haven't already, Provision is a cloud software program that is used to manage food safety and quality assurance. So really at the heart of what Provision does is it lets you fill out your records for CGMP compliance or really any certification compliance in a more efficient way. Related to filling out those records, Provision allows you to organize your team so everyone knows who's responsible for which activities and when they're due. Provision lets you also combine all of the data that's submitted in your records into totally customizable reports. So using these custom reports, you can have really nice summaries that allow you to go into an audit with more confidence or analyze your operation and build that confidence. And I guess related to all of that record keeping, Provision lets you basically manage all of your SOPs, manage your suppliers, and much more. So the value in this is really automation that's going to save you time, guidance that's going to limit your mistakes, and ultimately alerts that will flag your mistakes and let you resolve them faster because of the automation that's built in. So as a result of this, you should be audit ready in less time, even being prepared for an unannounced audit at any time. But ultimately also improve your process control for QA by having kind of better instructions, better detection, and ultimately cleaner data for your operation at all times. So Provision is designed for small and medium companies and starts at only $49 a month. So what we're going to do in this next segment is show you how these ASI templates look in Provision with a live demonstration of the. Before I begin that live demonstration, I'm just going to launch 2 poll questions for everyone in the audience today. So we're curious to learn from you where you're at with food safety right now. And we're also curious to learn from you what stage you're at with digital solutions. So your answers to both of those polls will help us to tailor the demo. So I look forward to seeing those come in. And with that in mind, I'm just going to switch from these slides into a live screen share of the Provision application. Perfect. So this demonstration currently is being done from a laptop, but Provision is a cloud application that's used in a web browser. So you can use Provision from any internet connected device. We have clients who use Provision most commonly on tablets, but also it can be used from phones, from desktop or laptop computers, and those can be any brand. It doesn't require any download from any particular app store. So today I'm going to go on a really quick summary tour, mostly just highlighting some of the points that Andrew raised in the interview. But as a really quick overview of what's in the platform, Forms, like I mentioned, is really the heart of how provision is used. It's a totally customizable place where you can set up your record templates and then capture data within those templates on the go. Tasks lets you schedule and track all of your team activity related to that record keeping. Reports lets you summarize and analyze the data that was submitted in your digital records. And resources lets you basically store and manage all of your suppliers, all of your documents, your product specs, and more. So I'm going to start today in resources because one of the key things that Andrew mentioned was SOP control. So when we tap into resources, there's all these different sections for key parts of your CGMP or food safety program that you can manage. Companies is where you would manage your customers and suppliers, but we're going to start today for the overview in documentation and just take a really quick look at how you can basically manage SOPs within the platform. So when you open up documentation, there's two different ways that you can have documents in the system. Provision can be totally customized to any operation, but what we're looking at right now is the ASI templates. So all of the SOPs that you would need to get started in a CGMP program are already built in if you choose to subscribe to their template bundle. So what we have in here is a complete set of documentation for CGMPs. You can see the name here in addition to version status, whether or not it's linked to particular records in the system, when it was uploaded, and if it's currently an active or inactive document that's in use. The important thing is that we're able to view this document at any point in time, so we can basically see the full SOP and how it should be followed. There's a complete change history that's built in so that you have automated tracking of any updates going into an audit. But the most important thing that Andrew touched on was the fact that you can link your SOPs in provision to forms. So you can see here that this SOP that we're looking at on foreign matter control, it's related to several different types of record keeping that's also built in for ASI's template bundle. So the SOPs are basically interlinked with these records. So the important thing is that when we're working inside of any of these records, we can actually view this SOP so that there's more ongoing training. So I'm going to skip back into the forms module and show you how that looks. So at any time while you're using provision, you can crack open a new form just using that plus icon, and you can pick from the templates which form you want to use for your record keeping. So as mentioned, these forms could come from ASI if you're subscribed to their template bundle. They have a complete set of CGMP forms built in and ready for you to use, or you could have all of your own templates built into provision for you. So we were talking about the pre-op inspection form. So the important thing to keep in mind, like Andrew mentioned, is that when a new employee joins your company, they're probably going to be trained on dozens of record templates plus dozens of SOPs. And each of those probably contain dozens of items for them to memorize. So it can be really overwhelming for them to keep that all in mind while they're operating. And if your SOPs are in a binder or even taped onto the wall of an office, oftentimes employees aren't going to actually leave their production setting to go look up those SOPs for instructions. What they really need are instructions that are available at their fingertips while they're working. So in this example, while we're working on the pre-op inspection form within ASI's template bundle, we can tap on documentation and it shows us all of the SOPs that were linked to this form template. So we were looking at the foreign matter control procedures. So you can see the interlinking here so that staff are basically able to get full instructions on how they need to achieve compliance while they're working on the related activity. And this can really limit mistakes in the operation, not just from a food safety perspective, but also from a quality perspective. So complementing those kind of written SOPs that we just looked at in the ASI template bundle, we've actually seen a lot of our clients shift to also introduce image-based SOPs. So they might have pictures with really easy to follow instructions of things all around the facilities or diagrams. So it's moving to more of like an IKEA model for how you might implement SOPs to really improve compliance and buy-in in the team. So that's just one example within the pre-op inspection. It's obviously infinitely flexible for you to have any number of SOPs, which are interlinked with any number of form templates. So moving on from that, one of the big topics that Andrew brought up was food safety culture. And looking at the poll results, that was something that was felt by a lot of the audience members today. So one of the key things that you're going to want to show for food safety culture is that everyone knows what they're responsible for, when it's due, and its sensitivity. This is really just going to demonstrate team buy-in and team organization, as well as clear communication, which are all things that could be audited by a group like ASI. So in provision, the place that you can accomplish that is tasks. So in this task center, basically what you're able to do is replace the whiteboards, the word of mouth, the text messages, and ensure that everyone has one harmonized spot where they can see what they're responsible for. And this basically ties into automated notifications that help you to stay on top of things. So a day in the life of your operator is that there would probably be a tablet on the floor of your facility. And when the operator logs in, they would tap on due today. And they can see exactly what they're responsible for and when it's due. So as a food safety manager, you're able to really quickly pre-build your task schedules. One of the things that Andrew touched on was training. So if you want to make sure that your training isn't missed, what you can do is you can pick your training, like a training sign-off sheet as an example. You could assign that to a team, but in this case, it might be more relevant to assign it to individuals. So you can pick anybody who is new on your team and basically assign them training as a one-time task, and you're done. So the important part is that when those employees log in, they're going to see that task. And if their task is missing or late, it's automatically going to be tracked as overdue without the food safety manager needing to chase down these people or manually pick out the fact that that record is missing from a stack of paperwork. So that's a way that you could do a one-time task. But the really important thing for these CGMPs is that you're actually able to use these tasks to stay on top of more regular procedures. So I'll show you a different example of how you could use this. You could assign out that pre-op inspection to certain teams. The teams could be built in here, like sanitation as an example, or QA night shift. What you could do is then assign those out with a due date as well as a due time, but then flip that from a one-time to a recurring task and then match it to your production schedule. So if you're an operation that's going, every Monday through Friday, you can assign that task on just the days that you're operating and basically set it up so that it repeats for up to 2 years. So I'm not going to assign this out right now so I don't create a bunch of noise. But the important thing is that for the next 2 years, anyone who logs in that's a part of that team that you've built will basically see this task and stay on top of it. So that's a really good starting point for food safety culture. But the other thing that Andrew touched on was the importance of having key metrics for your team. So I'm going to show you an example of those metrics. Inside of the pre-op inspection that we're looking at here, we have automated rules that are built in order to generate the metrics for us. You can create any rule that you want in provision. It could be based on checklists, on text, on numbers. And basically, it will instantly detect if any of the data is non-compliant with your requirements. So in this example, while we're doing the pre-op inspection, as long as we're passing the items that we're looking at, we are all good. But as soon as we fail an item that we're looking at, the system will automatically track the standard that the failure happened against, and it will automatically build up a tally of the non-conformances. Because in this example, that was how we set up the ASI program so that you could have a key performance indicator for your food safety culture. So you'll see as I continue to fail items in this inspection, it continues to build up that count. And one of the ways that we see this implemented really successfully with our clients is by using dashboards. So as an example, you could have a trend line showing your non-conformances over time, maybe demonstrating to an auditor that you've had continuous improvement among the team in reducing non-conformances. You could have this dashboard implemented on TVs around the production floor to show that the entire team has visibility into it. And one of the key things that Andrew mentioned was creating rewards. So in provision, you could, as an example, automatically track the QC who's detecting these non-conformances. So you could see that Dave, for example, has scouted 11 non-conformances. It looks like he's the leader right now. So maybe you want to give a personalized reward to that employee in your regular food safety meetings, showing that you're incentivizing and encouraging the right behaviors to build that food safety culture. So all of that is streamlined in provision so that you can really stay on top of it on the go. The other thing that you want to show here that Andrew mentioned was basically proper detection and follow-up for non-conformances so that you can be audit ready anytime. So I'm going to show you guys an example of that. In the ASI template bundle, they have environmental monitor built into their pre-op inspection. So what I could do here is I can start a new swab, and basically I can see here that the ATP upper limit is 50. In provision, you can build in these kind of hint instructions to your team on any question or any section. So the nice thing is that even though you tell them what the upper limit is, it's actually automated the way that that rule is enforced. So if I say that the swab result is 20, you'll see automatically I'm passing this test. But if I put in a swab result of something like 60, it's automatically going to fail my result. And it tells me that I need to split out this workflow. So instead of this being submitted as a record that's okay and compliant, which might enable a faster verification, instead I can split it out to a different status so that I'm submitting it under corrective action required. So you'll see here when I submit it, it's a whole nother status that I submit it under. So as a manager, there's different places that this pops up so it gets the utmost attention. If I were logged in as somebody who had permissions to resolve one of those, then basically I would have a task that's due today where I would see that the status is corrective action required. Right now, I'm not logged in as one of the managers with that permission. You could also lock it down so that only managers have permission to finish that form, but I'm just going to jump into it quickly. And I'll show you there's this whole separate section where corrective action is required. So you can see any of the records that require your review. You could jump into this, basically see what the data is and perform all of your corrective and preventative actions inside of that record. The nice thing is that's going to keep it really tightly bundled. So in the same record where you can see your report showing a failed result, you can see the immediate corrective actions that were done. And that section was automatically created for you to do as soon as your data failed. So that can really keep things clean for your audit prep. These statuses can also keep things really clean. So all of your corrective action stuff is in one spot, and ultimately all of your completed records are in one spot. In provision, you can pre-build any folder that you want so that your records get automatically sorted. So the form template, when it's first created, basically you say which folder to sort it into. So what that allows is for you to have folders that you could search for so that you can instantly find any record and show it to an auditor. But the best way to get data out of the system is actually using reports. So in reports, you can basically build any summary of any information that was gathered. So as an example here, I could open up a pre-op inspection report. And in this example, all we've asked it to do is check mark certain information out of all of the submissions. So instead of reading hundreds of record submissions, I can just view their summaries. In this example, we've just asked it to summarize the count of non-conformances and the standards that they happened against, as well as any comments about the deviation that was found. You could also have pictures inside of the records and other supporting information so that you have really deep context for root cause analysis. The important thing is that in one click, you can export all of the content of your provision report into Excel. So this is going to give you a really clean spreadsheet that you can use for further analytics or charting if you're not already using a tool like Power BI. So that could be used on anything like your pre-op inspection, but a really good way to use it that Andrew mentioned is for your internal audit. So you could basically have a summary of your internal audit results over time. And if you wanted to, in one click, you can jump from the report into the corresponding form that was completed, and you can view this whole thing. So you can go through it and see exactly, the comments. Maybe there's attached pictures inside of this. And what this internal audit template is doing is it's automatically building the summary at the bottom of the non-conformances that happened in each section of your operation. So pest control, food defense, storage and distribution. This is all criteria that's been built by ASI into their templates. So it makes it really fast for you to perform internal, analyze exactly where you're having failures, and then correct those in the operation so that you can continuously improve. So there's a lot more that I would love to show everyone in the platform, but we want to keep things tight for today. So I'm just going to stop the demonstration there. I'll call both Andrew and Dana back on stage, and we can kick things off with the audience Q&A. While we're starting the audience Q&A, I'm just going to go back into the screen here, and I'm going to share a couple handouts with the audience. The first is that we have a brochure from ASI. So in the handout section on the right side of your screen, you can download that brochure from ASI. The second handout that we have for you today is a sample of the template bundle from ASI in analog format. So you can download their employee hygiene SOP. That's just a Microsoft Word document. For those of you who are interested in actually using the provision version of the template bundle from ASI, which has all of the automation built in, we have a link that you can click on, and that link is going to appear in the left-hand side of the screen. So if you're interested in using the digital template bundle from ASI, or if you're just interested in provision generally, you can use that link in order to book an appointment with us. We're happy to show you pricing that's custom to your operation and give you a plan of what it looks like to actually roll out a digital solution for your food safety and QA. So with that in mind, let's open up the stage for the Q&A. Dana, do you want to take it?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. I'm going to start with one for Andrew. This is real quick, Andrew, about your cannabis program. I know you guys have something new that rolled out, and a couple of people asked if you have CGMPs for cannabis and hemp.
Yes, we absolutely do. So they're just slightly different than the food manufacturing industry. We have a couple additional SOPs that go with a template package to adhere to our CSQC GMP audit, which is, a requirement and accepted by several states.
Okay, all right, thanks. I know if people want more information, they can go on the ASI website about that.
Yeah.
The next question is about kind of employee training and SOPs. And someone asked, do all employees need to know all of the SOPs or just the ones involved in that particular process?
So that's a great question. I usually recommend a general overview of all the SOPs and how it's important, but specific training to the ones that apply to their roles. So general overview for everybody, but then once you get down to the training, the quizzes and everything else, you just have to worry about those whose, say, roles are impacted by that SOP. Now, there
Okay.
are a few SOPs that do apply to everybody, like the GMP for personnel that we did share during this meeting, because that goes over, what are the requirements for the employees to ensure that they're creating a safe environment.
Okay. Thank you for that. The next question, I think maybe Kevin, you can take a stab at it, but it's kind of for both of you because I think it applies to the compliance store. Someone's asking, is there a monthly fee to work with the SOPs and forms?
There is, yeah. So there's two types of subscription here. You can subscribe to provision itself, and basically that would be starting at $49 a month. The way that we price provision, it's a per user price. So if you have a really large organization, we can scale that pricing for you so that you get significant discounts or economies of scale. So that's your access to provision itself. And in that, you could have your own templates built in there, and those would be free for you to use. If you choose, you could use ASI's great template bundles. Their CGMP template bundle is $75. That's the price for as long as you're using their template bundle. Yeah, I think that probably tackles it.
I think that covered it pretty well. The next one is a really good question. A lot of you might be wondering about this. Today the focus was on just GMPs, CGMPs, which are fairly basic and pretty much everyone has to have that in place. But someone asked, can the system conform to GFSI?
Yes. So the vast majority of our clients are GFSI certified. The most common certification that's achieved by provision clients is SQ. Behind that, it's BRC. Right now, we have clients who are also Global Gap, FSSC 22000, a lot of Canada Gap. Ultimately, the way that provision is rolled out, it's totally custom to your operation. So you could use your own existing record templates, just enhanced with new automations, and you can upload and manage your own SOPs. So whatever you're using for GFSI compliance today is applicable within provision.
Okay. And this question, I think, Andrew, maybe you can give us some insight on this. I know both Provision and ASI work with all sizes of companies, but we have a lot of small to mediums and even startups. So someone asked a good question. They said, is there a standard internal CGMP audit template for companies that are new to this? Maybe they're just developing their CGMP program.
Yeah, definitely. So we actually do have a template that comes with the bundle package. It's a simplified version of our GMP audit. It's not the full-blown GMP audit, but it hits the main key points and highlights crucial areas you should focus in. So yeah, by default, that actually does come with our template package. And if you always wanted something more robust, I could send them over to you. So internal audit checklists, I have plenty of them. So let me know.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And then another question here is, can non-conformances be appropriately addressed if there's no food safety culture?
It's a good question. Yes and no. So one thing about the food safety culture and a good food safety culture is identifying the importance of nonconformances and the importance of, say, identifying them and correcting them. I mean, you can correct them without a positive food safety culture, but I usually say if you have a good food safety culture, it's going to lessen the likeliness of those repeat nonconformances. If you don't have a good food safety culture, you could keep seeing the same thing over and over because improper training or improper awareness of the importance of a specific item.
Okay, great. And then we had another question come in back to the CSQ or the cannabis quality audits. And someone was asking, can they address CSQ within provision? And I think the answer is coming soon, but I'll let Andrew or Kevin answer that.
Yeah, we have a couple new template bundles that are coming out with ASI. Andrew, do you want to speak to those a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So we are going to have an SQF and a CSQ template bundle package. And one thing that I want to throw out there is the way that all of our template bundles work is the GMP template bundle is the most basic of the three. And then CSQ and SQF are pretty much on the same level. They're a higher, more robust version of it. And simply put, the difference between GMP and CSQ or SQF is going to be the addition of just a few other templates. So even if you get the GMP template package, you're still going to be in a great position because it's going to get you, say, 75% of what you need for either SQF or CSQ. And if you needed those remainder SOPs, we will either have the packages available or, yeah, you can contact me and we can help you work through the additional requirements.
Okay. Kevin, do we have time for one more? I know we were 10 minutes out. We have one last question, I think.
Yeah. Let's jump on anything that remains.
Okay, maybe two. So this one's about reporting, which I like. It says, are visual reports for only management, or is the intention to have it for others on the floor? And should KPIs be shown to frontline workers? Which I know is kind of a broad question, but a good one.
Yeah, in provision, you can control permissions. So basically, you can build different security levels for different members of staff, and then that security level controls their visibility. So if you wanted to block out visibility into reporting, you could certainly do that inside of the application. With that in mind, we have heard a lot of advisors encouraging visibility into metrics, because it does basically facilitate the food safety culture where there's transparency and buy-in and knowledge of how the operation is performing. So it could be good to expose those to staff, but if you choose, you can lock it down. Andrew, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay. And the last question, I think I can take it because it's from someone who is a food safety consultant. And I know we have possibly some of our other current partners on the phone and possibly food safety consultants. So number one, I would say if you're interested in a partnership with Provision, certainly reach out to me. I manage our US partnerships and work with some of our partners in Canada. But the question is, can the system make SOPs and programs for multiple companies for food safety consultants? So the answer is yes, we tailor the system for each company. So for our partners like ASI, they have hundreds, thousands of clients. If we engage with individual clients, we put together a system and a program that works for them. So I hope that answered the question on that one.
And I'll add to that, the template bundle that we're discussing with ASI is part of a marketplace called the Compliance Store. So there are many template bundles available there. I think ASI's is the first on CGMPs in particular, but we encourage as many template bundles as there is demand in the Compliance Store.
Okay, well, I don't see any other questions coming in. Thanks everyone for your questions and for participating in the poll. And thanks to Andrew for your insights today. We really appreciate it. I hope everybody found this valuable. I don't know if you guys have any other comments before we wrap it up.
I think that's great. Thanks, Dana, for hosting, and thank you, Andrew, for joining us.
Thank you.
Everybody have a happy holiday.